I'm in Kinshasa. We hear about this story. There is a hospital in a place called Bukavu, some 2,000 kilometers away. By the way, that's like from Mombasa to Kampala. 2,000 kilometers away, where there's a lone doctor who treats victims of mass rape. And I tell my cameraman, I say, listen, man, this is a great story. Let's see if we can do it. We got the permission. But now getting to Bukavu, it took us most of a day flying the 2,000 kilometers from Kinshasa to Mbujimai, from Mbujimai to one or two other towns, and from there all the way to Bukavu. We arrived there about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the evening, and we go straight to this hospital, Panzi Hospital, the only one in Bukavu, and we arrived there. Because those days there was no email, there was no cell phones, especially in the Congo, you couldn't use cell phones, there's none. So we've decided, let's go there ourselves, see if we can get permission. We've arrived, we've made all this, we've come the distance, let's try. Get to the gate, and we ask the people that listen, would like to do a story on this, what's happening here. And they said, okay, let's talk to the doctor in charge. Let's see, if he gives permission, it's fine. So they went. A few minutes later, guess who shows up? Dr. Dennis Mukwege Mukengere. He was the lone doctor treating these patients there at this hospital. He founded it, the Panzi Hospital. He founded it himself. And he was treated every day. And when we talked to him, he speaks heavily French accent. And we asked him for permission. Can we film? Can we tell the story? The world, nobody knows the story. This was back in 2005, 2006. And he says, look, we will allow you only if you tell the real story. I said, look, if we can get permission from everyone here, we'll do it. Boom. Just like that, we enter and start filming. I tell you, folks, the hospital maximum capacity, maybe 100 people. On this day, there was more than 700 women from the ages of 7 to 70. All of them raped by men in uniform. Imagine that for a moment. And this was their only place that they could find some solace, some peace. This was their refuge. And we got in there, and I'm telling you, the shock on our faces. So we asked the women if we could interview them, and they agreed. And I tell you, this is how it went. I'll come back to that. This is how it went. So Dr. Mukengere took us to one of the wards where women who had recently arrived were being treated. They ranged, like I said, from the age of 7 to 70. I noticed one young woman who appeared to be in her mid-30s lying on the floor, staring at the ceiling. Dr. Mukengere told us her name was Tsinzi. She had been brought in by her teenage son in a wheelbarrow from her village, some 25 miles away. That's like 40 kilometers. It's like from Nairobi to Thika town in a wheelbarrow for a woman who had been repeatedly raped. I asked to speak to her, and she agreed, since he recounted how she had been gang raped by up to 15 soldiers for 3 days and left for dead. I was numb with shock, which quickly turned to anger. Dr. Mukengere saw my reaction and warned, this is just one example. There are more and more stories right here in this compound. A few beds away, Dr. Mukengere pointed out another young woman. Her name was Bernadette Mulilenge. She told me how a knife had been inserted into her vagina after she had been gang raped repeatedly by about a dozen soldiers. When I asked why, her answer confirmed my worst fears. Because we belonged to the wrong tribe, and the soldiers didn't want us giving birth and populating the village. Think about that for a moment. As I asked the next question, what kind of human being would do such a thing? Bernadette, who was listening, tried to smile, and instead tears ran down her cheeks as she said, "At least we are still alive, at least for now. There are many others who didn't live, and many more who are being raped out there right now as we speak." It was frightening frightening to say the least. A few beds away, I met 40-year-old Mpenzi, who recounted how she and her younger sister were raped by a group of soldiers for several hours. She told her sister not to resist, but she would not listen and kept fighting off the soldiers. One of the soldiers took out his gun, and while his fellow rapist held her legs apart, he shoved the weapon into her vagina and pulled back the trigger. Her sister screamed before he shot her again in the face. They continued raping Mpenzi as her sister lay dead beside her. This is not makeup, folks. This is not a movie. This is someone telling me firsthand what happened to them. We go on, and I was saying to myself, what kind of madness is this? These women were no different from my grandmother, my mother, my sisters, my aunts, and even my wife. Yet this was going on in the 21st century? Shame on every one of us, I thought. Shame on everyone who condones such bestiality and savagery. Shame on those who knew and just looked the other way. Dr. Mukengere continued our tour of the hospital. We came to an enclosure used as a dining area. There were several hundred women gathered there in the enclosure, while about a dozen others were preparing dinner over huge open fires. When they saw their savior, they burst into a song in Kiswahili that went to the effect that, in translation, "We will not be moved. We will be battered and bruised, but we will not be moved." We kept filming and filming the reactions of the women, all of the women in this compound, coming together for one reason, because they did not want to go back to their village. They were scared to go back. And we filmed until sundown. And as we packed our gear, Mpenzi, one of the women I told you about earlier on, she gained enough strength to get off her bed and walk outside. Leaning on a walking stick, she told me through an interpreter, "We know not all men are evil." She continued, "Thank you for being the voice of the voiceless." I could not hold back the tears. It was incredible. And then what I said to myself as we were going back to the hotel, what's going to happen to these women when they go back to their villages? Because eventually they would have to leave Panzi Hospital and head back to their villages. What would happen then? Once we arrived back at the hotel, my story had practically written itself. It was a person-driven story, and I would let Cincy, Bernadette, Mpenzi, and Dr. Mukengere tell it all. I weaved their stories, and when I submitted the script for Proven in Atlanta, one of the executive producers called back and says, "Wow, Jeff, if the pictures are as powerful as you say they are, we have an amazing story." I was so angry, folks. That's one time, in journalism, you have to be objective in the stories you do. But this one time, you couldn't help but be subjective. But if it's told through the eyes of the witness, of the victims, then that's good enough.